Hello. I couldn't wait to get to talk about this subject because I am single. I have been married 3 times. Now, don't get to start counting going and stuff was wrong with her. I guess so. That she was Jezebel, and that was part of my issue back during my younger age. But actually, for those who are listening to this who do not know, my first marriage, I married when I was about 17 years old to my children's father, who took a 12 gauge shotgun after a year and a half of the marriage and tried to kill me and blew out part of my face. And so then, hoping to find someone who would really be, the guy that would, accept me for more than sex. I won't get into that in a minute. But this particular guy that I married the second time, after all was done with the face, as much as was going to be done, unfortunately, I wake up in the middle of the night one night and he to go to the bathroom and he's sitting on the toilet with a needle in his arm. So Lord help us today. So that marriage ended very quickly. We was only into the marriage about 6 months when I found out that he was addicted to all kinds of drugs, heroin, and the whole nine. And so that marriage ended very quickly. But then the third husband uh, was the one that I thought would truly be the knight in shining armor. We were married for several years, and he just decided that when I really actually his whole demeanor changed once I got filled with the Holy Ghost. We're talking about with the evidence of speaking in tongues. He just said that and later I noticed he got further and further away from me. He felt that he did not want to be married to a preacher woman, and we're gonna get into that singleness and being married. But I really really adore marriage, and I think it is so beautiful because that's God's institution. That is what He desires for us. And but you need to want to be married. And many of us may desire to be married, and God may not want us to be married right now. I'm not saying not ever, and but because only God knows that. But you gotta want to be married. And now, with all the different challenges that I had in the marriages that I went through, I still love men. But I want to say this: at this juncture in my life, I do not want to be married. And one of the reasons why I don't want to be married because I want to be able to talk freely like I am now to be able to help marriages. I want to help build marriages. For everything the devil stole from me, I want to restore marriages. I want to build up families and to talk to leaders and to talk to women who are dating so that they can have, whole and healthy relationships and strong marriages to build healthy families. So when we build a healthy family in a marriage, we're building healthy churches for kingdom building. And so I'm just grateful to be alive, number one, to be able to talk and share my experiences, and hopefully they'll help somebody out. Now, I want to start out talking about the loneliness. One of the things about single women, a majority of ones, if I hit right, if they were like I was just lonely to the point that I did not want, my bed to be empty. I just had to have a man in the bed with me. Just not that I really even wanted them there because I treated them really bad. I was just horrible back then. I was very controlling and mean and stuff. And just really, I think I was still in that emotional state that I just want to make every man pay for what my children's father did to me. But thank God for deliverance and healing. I'm here to help you out today. I want you to know, woman, if you're listening. I want you to know, man, if you're listening, whether you're a man or a woman. If you're single, I want you to tune in to what I'm saying here today. See, this loneliness, many of the people who getting in and out of the bed with women and vice versa, men, I want to say this loneliness has caused a whole lot of people even to lose their identity. This is the reason why a lot of women start sleeping with women and men start sleeping with men is because they're hurting about a lot of things. Their minds are confused, and we don't want to leave out the deception of the enemy that's speaking to them in their ears about this stuff about, well, men ain't working out and and women ain't working out, so they want to try to fill that loneliness and fill that void. And we want to recognize too that this loneliness, just because you're lonely doesn't mean that you're sick. That means that you're trying to find someone to fulfill that void, that emptiness in your life, whether it's just having a coffee time with weekly or whether it's going out to dinner. You may never even get into the bed. But today, unfortunately, women have gotten so bold that this loneliness has caused them to give men their phone numbers, invite them out to dinner, pay for the dinner. I'm not saying it's wrong for the woman to pay for the dinner. I'm just saying, we got to realize a lot of these single women have gotten so pushy, has gotten so, I call it just foul with their behavior with men, and men just stand back. They don't need to do nothing, just walk in the room. If he's looking good and got all his packages with his muscles working, then the women just gonna start writing phone numbers down and moving around with their bodies and stuff and profiling, so the man can draw attention. I've never in my life seen anything like that. But this lonely spirit, whether you're married or single, this loneliness has caused so many marriages to be destroyed, where there's, I call them Facebook prostitutes that are on the Facebook profiling their bodies and on the chat line talking to married men at 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning while the woman of God is asleep. Maybe it's a first lady, or maybe it's just a married couple that is in the Lord. But what is happening is marriages are being destroyed. Why? Because of the spirit of loneliness. You're not, just because you are alone does not mean that you are lonely. And that's what I love to be able to explain to people. I may be alone, but I have legions of angels, and I've got a lot of husbands. I call my husband books. They're actually in the bed with me. Certain ones I take in and out of the bed with me to read and to study. These are my husbands. And everybody that know me, I tell them, I got this husband in the bed with me right now. I already let the other one go. I don't read him. But this is the thing I'm saying. There's one husband that I keep in the bed. It is the Bible. But what's wrong today, we won't pick that up. We want to pick up everything else. And so this loneliness has caused so many marriages to be destroyed because why? The spirit of loneliness has got them confused to believe that if they don't get someone to feel that emotional need, which is nothing but the flesh being craved for all these lustful thoughts and things, then they will have to go outside of the marriage or outside of the relationship to get that person to fulfill that need. And really what they need is counsel, because what they need to find out is what is that emotional thing that's causing them to feel lonely. See, loneliness will drive you to the point that you will invite people in that you have not even did a check on. Too many women have been bringing men into their homes, especially single women that have children, and these kids are being molested and everything else by these boyfriends, and then vice versa. Women are bringing other women in to try to help them out. Maybe they don't have a place to stay with their children, and these are Christian folks. And then the husband tips in the room while the wife is asleep and going to sleep with the very person that they're trying to help. Why? Because he's lonely. He's feeling the wife is not giving him what he needs, or there's always something wrong where she was holding sex. And I'm not saying that that's why it should have happened. I'm just saying a lot of women do that witchcraft move to keep the man in check or at bay to get what they want. So they withhold sex, and really what they're doing, they're withholding what is rightfully theirs. And the men go outside the marriage and say, I'm going to have to get it somewhere. Why? Because he's watching pornography. He's watching all these women on TV. He's watching all these women come in with these too little clothes at the church. And then now he wants to try to make sure he fulfills that emotional need. Oh, I'm trying to slow this thing down, because I want to talk a little bit about the people who search for those people to help them to fulfill the loneliness. But actually, if you think about it, you're not lonely, you just alone, especially if you're dating. You just feel this person can't give you what you need in the emotional realm. See, a lot of people who want to feel married or think that they are married, they're really not married. That's why they feel lonely. Because what they've done is they've married what made them feel good emotionally. Whether if the sex was good, they say, well, I'm going to stay with him because, man, he sure know how to bring it home. I know that was my reason why, because I didn't know what love was. I just felt like if you do sex good, they're going to stay with you. Or if you do it the way they want you to do it, they won't go outside the marriage. They won't go outside the relationship. That wasn't so. That's why we have so many women who are single today that are dating men that have had, I call them, got a whole lot of miles on them. Same thing with the women. Men are dating women who got a whole lot of miles on them, and they're getting all these infections and everything else. Why? Because they married someone who was nothing but a soul tie of the past relationship, nothing but a soul tie from an ex or something like that that didn't work out the first marriage. So now you want to find a woman who may make you feel like she did sexually. It's all about the flesh. I'm talking to you now. That's all it's about in this loneliness. It's about the sex. It's about what you can get to somebody to make you feel good, to say, I guess they're going to be with me for a while because I guess this sex was just right for them. But I want to share something with you that just ain't going to be so. Because what's happening, if you're married right now out of an emotional soul tie or an emotional attachment, these emotional bonding type of thing, that keeps you dependent. You are becoming dependent on that person to keep you in this physical realm of this emotional need. I know I'm talking to somebody. Now I'm trying to slow it down. But this kind that you think is going to be like glue and that they're going to cleave to you is nothing going to be but a bonding of cobwebs, which means that that person going to sleep with you and a whole bunch of other ones going to visit you because you're still trying to get to the thing that has nothing to do with your flesh. It's all about your heart. Your heart is broken. Your heart is confused. Your heart is just, it's just torn to pieces about feeling that you are alone, lonely. Your life is shifting. I'm 35. I'm 45. I have no children. I have no husband. I have no one to love me. But what it is that you have not found out what it means to really be single. You might want to go pick up the book by Dr. Miles Monroe. I love this book. He talks about single and the unmarried, and he talks about married people saying they're going 50-50 to be married, when actually how can you go 50-50 when you're one? I like that way he put that down. People need to learn how to be single before they can get married. See, that's what I love about being single now, because when God sent me a husband, I know how to treat him. I know how to treat the Boaz. Why? Because I had to learn to love me. I had to learn who I was. I had to learn how to affirm who God said I was. And so in order for me to do that, I couldn't look around at the outer. I had to look within. It has to be about the heart. It has to be about what's ticking inside of my heart. And let me read you what he said about the single. He said there's a difference between being single and being unmarried. He said most unmarried people consider themselves single. And then he goes on to say the average person has never been single, even though he or she may be unmarried or divorced. Unmarried means to be without a spouse. So does divorce in the legal sense. But single means to be all one what? Alone. A separate, unique, and independently whole individual. He goes on to say that many marriages fail because people get married before they become single. He says they latch onto a spouse, identifying themselves with someone else before they have come to terms with their own identity. That is so true. And I love this part where he's talking about, people have to recognize their own self-image. That's the first thing to be able to understand who you are. Find out what makes you tick. What's functioning inside, what makes your heart function to the point that you want to be in the likeness of God first. That's the reason why the marriages don't work, because people want the husbands or those wives to be the little God. I remember when I was married, I made my husband a little God. Anything he wanted. If he wanted me to watch pornography, I watched it. If he wanted me to do what they did on the tape, I tried it. If he wanted me to wear those filthy clothes that the women was wearing on the tapes, I bought them. If he wanted me to stand up and dance on the table, I did it. Whatever it took, I felt that if I could just get him to stay with me and go to nobody else, that's what I did. I made him a little God. Everything that he wanted, it all revolved around him. But see, I had it all twisted when it came to submissiveness. It was all defiled. It was all just out of the will of God. I know I'm talking to somebody. But see, as he talked about this, he said, people who are truly single don't pursue marriage. They're whole and complete without it. Unmarried people who are not single can't what? Wait to get married. They think about it all the time. They dream about it. They talk about it. They're always running after somebody to marry them. And he says a truly single person does not even have a desire for marriage. And that hit me right on the nose. I don't have a desire because I'm truly single. And if I get married, I know how to be married and single. That means I know how to deal with my own self and not try to create somebody into what I need them to be to make me feel what? Complete. But that's what's happening with a whole lot of people today. They're trying to get married so they can fulfill that lonely spot, what they think is really lonely, when really it's something emotional that they need to find out about themselves. When that happens, and only when that happens, God can what? Show you your spouse. There's no way you can find your spouse when you're looking for the man, woman. The Bible says in Proverbs 18 and 22, he who finds a wife, what? He's going to find a good thing. But we got too many women trying to find the husband. And this hour, men can't find the wife because they've been betrayed so much or still hating with so much baby mama drama that they put every woman in the same shoe that they suffered from the last woman. But I want you to know in this hour, the first thing you got to do is give yourself the gift of singleness. I know I'm talking to somebody. And I really want you to get this book by Dr. Monroe on single, married, separated, or life after divorce. It's so important that you understand that when it's married. I've been there. I was married to a man for a number of years, and we stayed together when I knew the marriage was about to dissolve because he was out there doing everything that I thought that I was making sure I took everything that he needed in the house. But once I came to the knowledge of the truth, you who are married right now, who may be going through this very thing that I'm talking about right now, married, sleeping in the same bed with a man, but you're living single, depressed, shameful, in secret, looking one way in the public, but you're lonely, you're torn up inside, you're depressed and oppressed and stressed because somebody might find out soon that maybe y'all not even in the same bed. He's sleeping in a different room and you are too. Maybe just all these years you've had your children believe that you got the good husband, they got a good daddy. And all the time he's got the other woman outside that's really what he describes as his wife. I never in my life seen so many marriages been ruined behind these, I'll say it again, Facebook prostitutes, people who want to be on Facebook at all hours of the night and on chat lines, talking to these women while the wife or the husband is asleep. Now, I'm going to tell you something, that married but living single and you're feeling lonely, this is the hour that God is trying to shape you to understand what happened along that way. Many of the people like myself married into soul ties from old relationships. So we figured that this person was going to be my spouse. Same thing with the male. You figured this one was going to be the one, when actually you was trying to either make that person be who you really wanted that wife to be through somebody else who maybe betrayed you, or maybe somebody else who left you, or somebody who emotionally abused you. But you hoping now that you got the right one, but you messed up and you had the sex before you had the marriage. And I always tell people, if Jesus really put you together, if he's actually ordained that marriage, you don't have to try it on for size. I can guarantee you that it's going to be all right. But what we do is we go with dibble dabble with that thing because we want to make sure that make sure it fit all right. And then you'll say, well, we need to get married. Nobody's checked out any emotions. Nobody's checked out any mental illness today. Nobody's checking the bloodline of generational issues. And before we know it, you jumped in the bed with a problem. And now that you're married, you're living single. Let me tell you something. And even that one, I lived with a man for several years and being married. Toward the end of the marriage, we slept in the same bed till toward the end for 6 whole years. And actually, I fasted and I prayed. And I know I'm talking to somebody. Ask the Lord to save our marriage, Lord. Send us to counsel. Do whatever it is, Lord. I just don't want to lose the marriage. I realize my mistakes now. You said to sanctify the wife, sanctify the husband. I did everything. I prayed, I fasted, but he would not change. And I kept asking him, what are you doing? And I begged the Lord why he won't make love to me anymore. And the Lord, I'll never forget, he said, I don't want him touching you. He's defiled. Many of the beds today are so defiled because we as women, because we want to marry so bad, because we're so emotional, and the men are so physical, to the point that, why? We become so depressed and we're willing to do anything, and we allow the defilements to come to bed. Men and people that maybe listen to this right now, they've even allowed threesome. I've actually counseled people who was tired of the husband bringing different people in the bed. But I'm telling you right now, you better hear from heaven today. This is not God's will for you. The hour has come that we've got to be single in our heart, single in our eyes, single in our mind, to know that God wants us single, what? In our hearts. That we may be single in our hearts to the point that everything that matters most to us is first Christ, and then most importantly, as we begin to understand who we are, then God will show us the mate for us to live with, to be with, to have our lives with. But no, we want to make these our gods, our little gods. We want to keep trying to find that person that will take out the void and the loneliness. And we get a hold to every kind of thing that we can even imagine, from perversion to abuse, to even neglect and abuse, and even sexual violence to our own children. And I'm telling you right now, God is not pleased with this type. This is the hour we've got to make a decision that we want to love God first, and then God will show us our mate. We can no longer sit back and say, oh, I'm so tired of being lonely. I'm so tired. I just want somebody. God has promised us in 1 Corinthians 7:34 and 35, an unmarried woman or virgin is concerned about the Lord's affairs. And I thank God for that, because this is the opportunity now, if you're single and you're not married, that you can be concerned with the Lord's affairs. But if you're married, you got to separate those out, and God will show you how if you're really praying. And it goes on to say her aim is to be devoted to the Lord in both body and spirit. But a married woman is concerned about the affairs of this world, which means of her spouse and the things and the cares that she has to take care of her spouse and her family too. How she can please her husband. I am saying this for your own good, not to restrict you, but that you may live in a right way and what? Undivided devotion to the Lord. I want you to know today, in this segment that I'm talking about, which is so important, that you can recognize this. It's not God's desire that you be married to live single. It's not God's desire that you tolerate a spouse that's going outside of the marriage to try to fulfill their loneliness. It's not God's desire that you sleep around and trying to fulfill that emotional need. These emotional marriages that's been taking place, these emotional relationships that are taking place, it's not God's will that you try to find your fulfillment in that manner. I love how he said this, and I want to remind you again what he is saying. He said it very clear. People who latch on to what? A spouse. What? To find in themselves what they're looking for themselves. You can't do that. You can't get a mate and try to shape them into what you want them to be. You can't get a mate who you know is violent or, neglectful or not the head of the house or not a strong man in the house to help raise up your children. It's not a man of love and peace for you and your family, a provider. Why would you want to get a man who want to lay around and not do anything? I never could ever understand that. I can't understand how women want to allow a man just to be there just to say they got a man and he does nothing for them. I can never understand how a woman would tolerate a man to stay with her in a marriage. He does nothing but go out and lay his hat wherever he please and be with whoever he please. And she just allow him to come back. I don't understand that. This is not God's will. You know why it takes place? Because we're not single. If you get single first, single within your heart, single within your eyes and your emotions, that needs to be single to the heavens of the Most High God, who is your Jehovah Jireh, your Jehovah Rapha. He will heal you. He will set you free from all this deception. When what? When we recognize, as he has said in this book, that what? This means that When you become separate, unique, and independently whole as an individual, this means why? That now you have come to understand that you will never ever be single married person. You will never ever be single person until you realize that you've got to know who you are. You've got to have your own esteem to believe God about who you really are. Remember what he said, a truly single person does not even have a desire to be married. And that married person, you got to learn how to be single first. Why? So that these two single people can come together and be what? One whole. God bless you. I pray that you will understand that it's not God's desire for you to be lonely. It's not God's desire that you be in the shape that you in as it relates to being alone. Guess why? Because he is forever present with us. You don't have to worry about what they're thinking about you being single, because the Bible says in Jeremiah 29:11 through 13, for I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans for welfare and not for evil, to give you a future and a hope. Then you will call on me and come and pray to me, and I will hear you. You will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart. It has to be a single heart. God bless you. It's up to you. Talk to you next time.